Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest aliens and UFOs video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's continue the wonderful book UFO Sightings by Alan Baker. Once again going into the conclusion, the final chapter associated with that book. This will be part 4. And in this case, it's talking about the UFO phenomenon, or at least with regards to the UFOs not being real. So we're going to finish this part here. There may be one or two final parts, and then that's it. That'll wrap up the entire book. And I'm excited to see what the next book is going to be, at least when it comes to the world of aliens and UFOs. So without further ado, let's start part 4 of this conclusion. And here's what it says. These differences are indeed profound, and yet the sudden journey into another reality is common to both scenarios. Kenneth Ring suggests that such people possess encounter-prone personalities, by which he means that their innate spiritual sensitivity indicates a visionary psyche that might represent the next step in human evolution. It should be emphasized that these people are not woolly-headed dreamers who are out of touch with reality, but rather a highly privileged group who have unconsciously recognized that, in the words of theoretical physicist Fred Alan Wolf, mind is not confined to individual and separated persons, but is universal, singular, and beyond any conceptual limit we enforce, such as the notion of space-time confinement. Wolf agrees with Kenneth Ring that NDEs and UFO encounters might be an evolutionary trend, leading to a human perception of unity between the self and the universe. Although the notion that ultimately all is one might be considered too mystical to have much relevance to what is essentially a scientific enigma, it is nevertheless gradually gaining currency in certain scientific circles. One of the most vocal proponents of this line of thinking is the British biochemist Rupert Sheldrake, whose theory of morphic resonance is considered by many to border on scientific hearsay. The central assertion of this theory is that there exists in nature a collective memory to which all life, indeed all organic matter, has unconscious access. This sounds rather like the Akashic records of theosophical theory, which holds that an eternal record of every event, thought, and action that has occurred since the beginning of the universe is presented in the Akasha, a Sanskrit word meaning the fundamental fabric of time and space. One of the illustrations Sheldrake provides of this storehouse of information and action is his claim that people who do the London Times crossword at night do it more quickly than those attempting it in the morning. According to Sheldrake, this occurs because the answers to the crosswords have entered the collective memory and are being accessed by people through morphic resonance. It is possible that those who experience NDEs and UFO abductions are in fact accessing this universal information record, especially in view of their sudden entry into the other world, whether it be the putative afterlife or an alien spacecraft. Indeed, Kenneth Ring notes that such reports are similar to dreams and that there is considerable discontinuity in them. This is particularly true of UFO abductions, in which the recipient is taken from one location to another, to yet another, for instance, from his or her bedroom to a waiting area inside the UFO, to an examination room, to a fetus incubation room, with little recollection of what happens in between. Of course, these encounters are not dreams as such. They seem to have a much greater grounding in reality, whatever the ultimate nature of that reality might be. In any event, it is apparently capable of interfacing with our conscious perceptions of the world at certain times, and is even capable of leaving physical traces on the bodies of recipients, such as scars and scoop marks, which tissue has apparently been taken, or the strange triangular rash experienced by Dr. X. If NDE experiencers and UFO abductees are accessing these records, which constitute another level of reality, this could account for the similarities between the various reports. However, the question remains, what is it that they are encountering? If the deceased relatives of NDE recipients really do exist in this transdimensional memory bank, then what are the grays? American philosopher Michael Grosser has suggested that there might be a manifestation of the collective guilt experienced by Western culture at an unconscious level, and which is related to the impact that modern science has had upon the face of our planet. The first image that naturally springs to mind is the terrifying arsenal of atomic weapons that humanity has accumulated. But an equally dreadful image is the abject suffering of the third world. The almost nightly television images of starved and wasted innocents succumbing to the ravages of disease and malnutrition or perishing horribly in civil wars have somehow resulted in a profound disturbance in the collective unconscious. This may have given rise to the reported dreamlike interpretations with emaciated beings, with wasted limbs and overlarge craniums, beings who, if the stories are to be believed, are dying. If this theory bears any relation to the truth, then perhaps it should come as no surprise that they treat their victims so cruelly, for the natural corollary of guilt is self-punishment. Next segment is called Northern Lights. Although so-called UFO flaps, in which many different witnesses in a particular location report sightings of unexplained objects over a few weeks or months, have occurred frequently over the years, it is extremely unusual for the UFOs to return to the same area with such regularity that scientists can set up their equipment there and be virtually guaranteed a sighting. However, just such a situation exists in the district of Hesteland in central Norway. The Hesteland lights were first reported by the local population in 1981, prompting the universities of Oslo, Bergen, and Trondheim, as well as the Norwegian Defense Research Establishment, to send several teams of investigators to tackle the mystery. In 1984, they were intrigued not only by the reports themselves, but the frequency with which they occurred. Clearly, something very unusual was going on. The following testimony from a miner named Bjarne Lillevold is representative of the Hesteland sightings. He said, "As I was on my way home from work on September 24th, 1982, I and a colleague saw a light against the mountains near Hesteland. We drove about 5 kilometers or 3 miles, and then the object began to descend towards the forest near Allen. When we ourselves reached Allen, the object was hovering close to the trees. My companion, who hadn't seen the celebrated UFO of Hesteland before, was very excited by the sight. We drove to the center of Allen and then saw a second object which came from the direction of Hesteland and halted below the other. I then drove on my moped to Hestadjolen, where I saw an object near a cottage. At first I thought the cottage itself was on fire, but then I saw it was something else which looked like an upside-down Christmas tree and bigger than the cottage beside it. It was about 4 meters or 13 feet above the hill and had a red light on it which blinked. There also seemed to be a curious blanket over the whole thing. The object was moving up and down like a yo-yo for about 20 minutes. When it was close to the ground, the light faded, but at the height of the maneuver, it was so bright that I couldn't look at it for long. When the light was near the ground, I could see through it as if it were made from glass." At the time, the Hesteland lights were being investigated by the group UFO Norge without any official help. They made several trips to Hesteland, taking several different items of equipment, such as magnetic field detectors and spectrum analyzers. Although these instruments yielded little valuable data, the teams were able to capture the UFOs on film. Behind the nebulous blobs of light, the researchers were able to discern a number of odd shapes, including rectangles and discs. More recently, the teams have returned to Hesteland with more sophisticated equipment in an attempt to record the spectral of the lights and thus determine the energy source behind them. However, these experiments have yet to yield any positive results. The research so far conducted suggests that the Hesteland lights may well be composed of ionized plasma, which would account for the strong radar reflections that have been recorded. In his 1995 book, The UFO Phenomenon, A Scientific Look at the Evidence for Extraterrestrial Contacts, science writer Edward Ashbol summarizes a review paper by Professor Boris Smirnov of the Russian Academy of Sciences, who has studied light phenomena like those encountered at Hesteland. According to Smirnov, they can be divided into 3 categories. Number 1, small or strong light or blue flashes, which could show up anywhere in the sky. Number 2, Yellow or yellow-white lights, usually observed in the valley and below the horizon. To be able to estimate the size and distance, it is necessary to observe a light against a solid background. Sometimes they were just above rooftops and even down near the ground. They could be stationary for more than an hour before moving off slowly around the valley. Sometimes they accelerate at very fast speeds. They were also observed high in the sky. And number 3, several lights together at fixed distances from each other. Mostly these were yellow or white lights with a red light in the front. These lights move slowly around the mountaintops. One of the most interesting results obtained by the research teams was gained by projecting a laser light at the lights. When this was done to one particular light, which was regularly flashing, it began to flash with twice the frequency until the laser beam was shut off, whereupon the flashes resumed their previous frequency. According to Ashpole, one possible reason for this surprising response is that since dense plasmas can be highly reflective, the physical vibration of the plasma is temporarily interrupted and changed by the arrival of a laser beam. Ashpole has discussed these intriguing phenomenon with several plasma scientists who maintain that an explanation of them is within the bounds of our present knowledge of physics. All that is needed is more concentrated research. When asked why such research has not been done, their answers are both sad and unsurprising. Since there is no discernible commercial value in discovering how the Hessdalen lights work, no one will finance any research. And then that's it. That concludes at least this part 4 of the last chapter, the chapter 12 conclusion from the book UFO Sightings by Alan Baker. Let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. So as you can see, it was summing up what was the previous discussion associated with NDEs or near-death experiences. I still have kind of a abstract answer. I don't know if it's real or not. I don't know if when people have near-death experiences, if they're traveling to another realm with who knows where, whether it's religious or not, or if they're truly being abducted, like if they have something associated with aliens. It's too loose, like there's no proof of any kind going anywhere on either side to give a true answer to it. So I'm just going to leave that one up in the air too. And then the idea that guy was stating that we're all connected together, like there's some universal mindset that's between everyone. Again, it's hard to prove that. It's kind of like I remember reading one time that it's string theory, that everything is just connected by the tiniest little strings in the universe. How do you prove that, right? So that's essentially what I think of that too. The other thing, though, involving northern lights, that's pretty interesting. The Hessdalen Lights, never heard of them before. The idea that you can go there and you're almost guaranteed a sighting, that's really good stuff. So those of you that are there near that location, Hessdalen Lights, which is again, let's see, somewhere there in Norway, central Norway. If you go there, apparently you can have a UFO sighting. And the way it was trying to be explained, that it was more on the lines of plasma lights, like something happening through nature. I don't know on that one. The fact that these things move, stop, change directions, change speeds as well, that doesn't seem like that's nature. Like that seems like that's something else. And the most damning evidence was when they projected that laser beam at the lights themselves, and the lights started reacting to it, and then it stopped. When the laser beam stopped, again, that shows intelligence. But let me know what you guys think. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.